This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, welcome to part C of detailed analysis on GST annual return. So this is the main part wherein we are going to discuss each and every table in depth. So mainly GSTR 9 is divided into 6 parts. There are 6 parts and 18 tables. The first part is about the basic details, which covers name, legal name, trade name, GSTIN. Second part consists of details of outward and inward supplies made during the financial year. Third part consists of details of ITC, input tax credit, for the financial year. Fourth part consists of details of tax paid as declared during the previous financial year. Then fifth part is the much important part, I would say. It consists of transactions of current year reported in next year. And sixth part consists of other information such as HSN wise data, data of composition dealers, etc. So let's proceed table wise. First three tables, as I told, consist of GSTIN, legal name, trade name. So nothing to discuss in them. Then comes table number 4, details of advances, inward and outward supplies made during the financial year. Words to be focused over here are advances, inward and outward supplies made during the financial year on which tax is payable. So friends, you all must be knowing that GSTR 9 was replaced 2 or 3 times. So the only change which was made in newer version of GSTR 9 was the headings of the table were changed. So these headings play a very important role. Here, important words to focus are supplies made during the financial year. On basis of this, we come to our conclusion that the primary data source is audited financial statements. Whatever supplies are made during the financial year are to be disclosed in this table, on which tax is payable. Again, it is important on which tax is payable. Also, inward supplies means RCM transactions are also to be reported here. So table 4A consists of supplies made to unregistered persons B2C, supplies made to registered persons B2B, then zero rated supplies export, and fourth we have supplies to SEZ on payment of tax. So friends, one more thing we all should know is GSTR 9 was earlier designed on the basis of GSTR 1. The original planning was accurate, but later the entire GST system was changed. Earlier there was going to be a system of GSTR 1, GSTR 2 and GSTR 3, and hence annual return data was to be data was planned would come from GSTR 1 and GSTR 2. But later, as GSTR 2 was not successful, we shifted to GSTR 1 and 3B. Data auto-populated in annual return is from GSTR 1. But as we discussed in our previous video, we are going to take base of audited financial statements. Hence, whatever data is auto-populated, we should ignore the same and we should do our own working, and data should be data to be reported should be as per our working. Also, at many places, we may find that these lines are now redundant. So the reason is, as now we are already filing data as per my books and 3B and not as per GSTR 1, these tables or these lines were supposed to be filled as per GSTR 1 and hence not applicable now. The bifurcation of B2B and B2C was there in GSTR 1 and hence required over here, but we are not going as per GSTR 1. So we should prepare register, sales register as per our audited financial statements and classify into B2B and B2C. Fifth point we have is of deemed exports. Next is advances on which tax has been paid but invoice has not been issued. These are only in respect of A to E above. So only if my transactions are covered in A to E above, then advances in respect of such transactions are to be reported here. Next point is our inward supplies on which RCM is payable. Next we have our credit notes and debit notes. In GST, only supplier can issue credit notes and debit notes. Hence, whenever we are referring credit notes and debit notes, it covers only supplies made by us. Any credit note or debit note in respect of our inward supplies should be ignored and not to be reported over here. Point K and L talks about supplies declared through amendments. As I told, we are already filing data as per our audited books of accounts and not as per GSTR1, and hence these two lines becomes redundant and should always remain nil. So this gives me total outward liability and tax thereon, including inward RCM transactions. So let's see a few intricacies in table 4. Whether supply made to registered person means B2B as required to be reported in table 4E also includes outward supplies on which tax is payable on reverse charge basis. For example, I am an advocate. I have GST registration, but on my few bills I have not levied GST because it is payable by recipient on RCM basis. My recipient is a registered person. While filing my GSTR1, I have reported these sales along with GST number and I have ticked yes to the clause which asks whether tax is payable by recipient. Should this amount be reported in table 4B? Answer is no. Only outward supply transactions on which tax is payable should be reported in table 4B. This is my outward supply transaction on which tax is not to be paid, and hence there is a separate table 5C in which the same is to be reported. Next issue is where to report stock transfer made to another branch situated in another state. So as we all know, in GST there is state-wise registrations. If I am having 3 different GST registrations, we are considered as distinct entities. We are filing GSTR9, GSTN wise, and hence any such transaction with another party should be reported as outward supply only in table 4B while filing annual return for that GST. So we saw that table 4E says disclose deemed exports. What are the deemed export transactions in GST law? Notification 48/2017 prescribes 4 specific transactions: supply of goods against authorization, supply of capital goods against EPCG authorization, supply of goods to EOU, and supply of gold by bank. These are the 4 main transactions which are considered as deemed exports, and only if these 4 transactions are there, then only table 4E should be filled. Now, next issue, I produce goods. Same goods I have exported to same party. Completely similar transaction, invoice value also same. But in first case, GST was paid by me on this export with payment of tax. And in second case, supply was made export without payment of tax under LUT. Goods are same, supplier is same, recipient is same, invoice value is same, still these two supplies would be classified separately. Export with payment of tax will be covered in table 4C, and exports without payment of tax will be covered in table 5A. So now let's move to table 5A. Details of outward supplies made during a financial year on which tax is not payable. So my outward supplies are divided in two parts. If tax is payable on outward supplies, they are going to be covered in table 4. If tax is not payable, then table 5. Table 4 in addition to this also cover two different transactions, advance and inward RCM transactions. Also we saw in case of advances, it was only for those advances which invoice is not yet issued. So moving to table 5, first A, zero rated supply, export without payment of tax, supply to Z without payment of tax. The difference in these two main from procedural point of view is, if it is a supply to SEZ, the recipient is going to have a GST number because he is registered in India. But if it is an export, the recipient won't have GST number. Third, supplies on which tax is to be paid by the recipient on reverse charge basis. Continuing our earlier example, if I am an advocate, in that case, the supplies on which I have not paid the tax would be reported over here. Next is exempted, E nil rated, and F non-GST supply. Then again same, credit notes and debit notes in respect of above transactions and supplies declared through amendments should always be nil. So the intricacies in table 5 is, I am making a supply which can be categorized as exempt supply also and nil rated supply also, or a nil rated supply also and no GST, no supply also. So here government has given a clarification that if a particular supply is capable of being categorized into two 5B, 5E and 5F, you should use reasonable basis for such categorization, and government will not take any adverse action if you have taken reasonable care. Also, for reporting in table 5F, they have clarified that non-GST supply includes alcoholic liquor for human consumption, motor spirit, high-speed diesel, aviation turbine fuel, petroleum crude, and natural gas. Also, other transactions as prescribed in Schedule 3 of the CGST Act. So, even these transactions are to be reported while filing annual return. Let's come to table 6. Table 6, details of ITC availed during the financial year. Here the word is ITC availed during the financial year and not ITC as per audited books. So table 4A is auto-populated. It's the amount of ITC which we have claimed through GSTR 3B. Three important classifications for inputs are inward supplies other than RCM, RCM inward supplies to registered persons, and RCM inward supplies to unregistered persons. I have here not mentioned 9.3 and 9.4. It is not 9.3 RCM and URD RCM. It is RCM supplies to registered parties and to unregistered parties. So for example, I am having an inward supply from advocate. Advocate is registered under GST. Still, then it will come under under registered category. that is B. Sorry, that is category D. And I have inward supply of say GTA, and GTA is not registered, it would come in category C. Both are liable to RCM under section 9(3), but for one category is C and for one category is D. Also, we have to bifurcate inputs to capital goods and input services. This bifurcation was not required in 3B, but is to be done while filing annual return. Import of goods, import of services, ITC received from ISD. So there are different lines for each different type of ITC which we can receive. Also, government understands that still there can be some ITC category which we miss, and hence there is a residual line. So there has been a confusion wherein table 6H, which says, if we see over here, just a minute. Table 6H talks about amount of ITC reclaimed under the provisions of the Act. So the example of amount of ITC reclaimed can be 180 days reversal. When I reclaim such amount, that will come in table 6H. For example, I had an inward supply of 10 lakh rupees, GST 1,80,000. In year 1, that will be covered over here. But payment was not done in 180 days and hence it was reversed. In next year, when I would reclaim this amount after making the payment, the said amount would not be covered in 6B but would be covered in 6H. Next issue is GSTR 3B doesn't require ITC to be bifurcated, but 9 is asking. The logic is, as I told earlier, GSTR 9 was prepared on the basis of GSTR 2 and 3. In GSTR 2, there was a facility or a requirement to bifurcate ITC into input service and capital goods. GSTR 2 is scrapped, but GSTR 9 remains, and hence we will have to do the manual working to submit the data. Next issue is whether ITC of Tran 2 filed after March 18 will be reported in table 6L. So Tran 2 was for the period of July to December, 6 months. But the last date to file the return was extended to June. If I have filed the return for the month of January, February and March in the month of June, that would be included in GSTR 9 of 18-19, not 17-18. The question comes, any other ITC availed but not specified above, table 6M. Are there any examples of such transaction? Yes. ITC claimed through from ITC 02, ITC 01, Tran 3 credit. These are the different examples for which no separate line is there and hence would be covered in table 6M. So now we would go to table 7. Table 7 covers reversal of ITC which are included in table 6. The words I am stressing over here are to reverse the ITC in table 7, they should be included in my table 6. Again, reversal, we have to give rule wise bifurcation. How much is reversal under rule 37, rule 39, rule 42, 43 and section 17.5. If there is any reversal other than these, then a separate line is there for same. Example, I opted in for composition scheme. The reversal would come in H1. So what are these rules? We would go to the rules. Rule 37. Rule 37 talks about reversal on non-payment of value of supply along with tax within a period of 180 days. So as per this rule, if my invoice was of rupees 10 lakhs, tax on the same was 1,80,000, 11,80,000. I have made payment of 5 lakhs only. So I would be eligible proportionate credit of 5 lakh upon 11,80,000. Remaining amount of ITC I have to reverse under Rule 37. Rule 39 deals with the procedure of distribution of ITC by input service distributor. Any reversal is there due to input received from input service distributor, the same should be shown in Rule 39. Rule 42 talks about reversal when an input is used for both a taxable supply and exempt supply. As per Rule 42, if my inputs are used completely for taxable supplies, I am eligible for 100% ITC for that specific inward supply. If my inward supply is used for 100% exempt supplies, I am not at all eligible for that specific inward supply. Example can be packing material. Packing material used for taxable goods, eligible 100%. Packing material used for exempted goods, not at all eligible. But all the supplies which are used for both taxable as well as tax-free or exempt supplies, for example, audit fees. In such cases, Rule 42 specifies proportionate set-off in the proportion of turnover. It is compulsory to follow Rule 42. We cannot devise our own reversal methodologies, wherein I would say this supply is used 70% for taxable supply and 30% for exempt. No, there is no time ratio or any other ratio, compulsory on turnover ratio, and it is to be done on a company level. It cannot be done, say out of my 10 products, these inward supply is used only for 3 products, so let's supply turnover only for 3 products. No. Rule 43 talks about proportionate set off for capital goods. As per Rule 43, I can take complete set off in first month and I have to proportionately reverse the set off in next 60 months in proportion of tax exempt supplies. So let's address few intricacies in table 7. Now, as I stressed earlier, only those inward supplies which are reported in table 6 are to be reversed in table 7. For example, I have not taken set off of rupees 5 lakhs of insurance on employee healthcare in table 6. Then there is no requirement to report the same in table 7. Only if the set off is taken in table 6, then we would report in table 7. Next is Which information is to be furnished in other reversals? In other reversals, in case of special circumstances read with rule section 18.4 to 18.6. Or it is a residuary clause for all the reversals which are not specified in these 5 rules. So now let's proceed to table 8. So friends, table 8 deals with other ITC related information. So there was a myth earlier that we can take ITC only as per 2A. Whatever difference is there in ITC as per 2A represented in table 8A and ITC claimed is to be reversed. But it was a myth. There is no such requirement. Table 8A is only for the purpose of information collection and it has no connection with tax liability calculation. So table 8A consists of ITC as per 2A. It is auto-populated and cannot be changed. Table 8B consists of ITC as per table 6B and 6H. It is also auto-populated from table number 6 and cannot be changed. Table number C consists of ITC on inward supplies claimed in next year. So as per law, we have a time limit of up to the return of September of next year to claim ITC. So if any ITC is not claimed by me by March, it would not come in table 6 because table 6 is ITC availed during the financial year. I have not availed ITC on that supply through 3B of that financial year. Hence, it would not come in table 6. It would come over here. After this, we identify if there is any difference, and if there is a difference, what is the reason? Is it eligible? Still, I have not claimed it, or is it ineligible? Hence, I have not reported it. After this, we go to G. IGST paid on import of goods and paid on imports and credit availed out of it. Difference in respect of same. Again, is there any ITC which is there on import of goods but which is not claimed by us? So friends, as I said, there were many myths about table 8 and many confusion. Hence, department through press release dated 3rd July has clarified that table 8D of annual return, the difference which is reported over there is just for the sake of information. There is no question that the credit has lapsed because of annual return. If my total inward supply was 10 crores, I have claimed through 3B of 8 crores and in next year 1.5 crores. If the time limit has expired, then that credit is already lapsed. That credit is already, the last date for claiming the credit is already gone. And it is not that if I report this amount in table 8D, then the credit is going to lapse. So this is only for information purposes. In the similar way, there were many confusion about how GSTR 2A amount in table 8A is derived. So friends, GSTR 2A is an ever-changing document. I have not filed my return of GSTR 1 return of 1718 still. If I file it today, GSTR 2A of all my supply of all my customers will change. So GSTR 2A is a dynamic document and hence GSTN has taken GSTR 2A as on 1st May. Again, in table 8J, they have told there is an issue in GSTR 9, as they specified a separate table 8C for ITC which is claimed in next year. There is no separate table for imports which are claimed in next year, and hence that is also clarified that even if you have claimed the imports in next year, you include it in table 8H only. Though table 8H requires ITC credit availed on import of goods during the financial year, you include even ITC claimed in next year because there is no separate column in GSTR 9. So friends, with this we will move to table 9. One basic cross check which we have to keep always is the tax payable as per table 9 should always be equal to tax payable as per table 4. There have been many cases wherein there are few adjustments because of which auto-populated table 4 changes. As per my auto-populated table 4, my liability was say 5 crores. But as per my audited books, it was 5.2 crores. I modify table 4, but I forget to modify table 9 and the tax payable amount remains the same in table 9. It will create adverse impact because GSTR 9C picks up output tax liability as per table 9 plus 10 minus 11. Base considered for GSTR 9C reporting is table 9 and not table 4. Hence, we should ensure that the tax payable as per table 9 should always be equal to tax payable as per table 4. Whatever difference is going to come in tax payable and tax paid, as we can see, the tax paid amounts paid through cash and paid through ITC cannot be modified, and hence if we change this amount, there is going to be a difference. Whatever difference is there in table 9 should be paid through DRC 03. At the same time, table 9 is not the only source through which differential tax payable can be generated. Differential tax payable only because of outward supplies is represented by table 9. If there is any reduction in ITC which we have claimed, for example over here 3 crores 18 lakhs and actual ITC as per audited financials, and hence we have reported the actual amount in GSTR 9. This difference also needs to be calculated and paid through DRC 03. Now we come to part 5 of annual return, which is the most important. As you all know, GSTR 9 consists of a particular year and Act allows us to claim credit even in next year up to the month of due date of filing of return of September. So where shall I report my ITC which I have claimed in next year? So it should not be reported in table 6, it should be reported in table 12 and 13. Similarly, if any amendments I have made to supply or if any outward tax liability which was not reported through GSTR 3B of say 1819 is reported in 1920 already before filing annual return, the same needs to be reported in table 10 and table 11 only and not in table 4. As I said, tax payable in table 9 would not include those transactions on whom tax is paid in next year because GSTR 9C picks amount of table 9 plus 10 minus 11. This is a very important table, and in my next video I would specifically cover how to report differences, whether any difference in my 3B and my audited financial statements would be reported in these tables or in normal tables. Table 14 does not, I would say, has become redundant now because tax payable and tax paid. If I am going to file GSTR 9 as per GSTR 1, this is a very logical question. You have reported sales in GSTR 1, but have you paid tax on the same? But we are filing GSTR 9 as per audited financial statements taking base of GSTR 3B, and it is not possible to declare something in 3B but with not paying tax on the same. Hence, table 14 should always remain nil. Table 15 consists about refund and demands. Only thing to be highlighted in this table is we have to report the status only up to 31st March of a particular year. For 18-19, for the first 6 months, I claimed refund in December and the refund was received in June 19. Refund is claimed, I would report it in table A, 15A, but it was sanctioned in May, hence I would not report the same in table 15B. This reporting would come in GSTR 9 of 1920. Table 16 deals with composition taxpayers deemed supply by job workers and goods sent on approval basis. This information is required to determine whether there is any liability under these categories. However, government has understood that it is not possible for small taxpayers to maintain this data, and hence they have provided their exemption through press release. Through this press release, they have told that they would not take any adverse action for not reporting information under this table 16A to 18. Table 17 and 18 consist of HSN wise supplies. HSN wise supplies for outward supplies is very easy, I feel, because it is a requirement of CGST rules to mention HSN on your bills tax invoice if your turnover is greater than 5 crores. 4 digit, and if it is between 1.5 crores to 5 crores, it's 2 digit. So this can be issue only if your turnover is less than 5 crores, I would say. In respect of HSN wise summary of inward supplies, we are not required to report each and every inward supply. Only the inward supplies which constitute more than 10% of my total inward supplies, not of my sales, of my total inward supplies, are to be reported in table 18. So let's address few issues through FAQs. Which tables in GSTR 9 has auto-populated data? Table 4, table 5. Because GSTR 1 is functioning, the information required in table 4 and table 5 is auto-populated as per GSTR 1. Table 6A, not the entire table, only 6A, which consists of total amount of input tax credit availed through from GSTR 3B, which is available with department. Similarly, input tax credit received from ISD information is there with department, and tax payable in table 6K, that is Tran 1 and Tran 2. Along with the same, table 9 we saw tax paid through cash and tax paid through ITC are auto-populated. So whichever information is available with government, the same is auto-populated. Out of the information in table 6A, table 8A and table 9 cannot be edited. Remaining everything we can change manually. For 17-18, there was an issue of whether transactions for the period April 17 to June 17 are to be included in GSTR 9, and the answer for the same is no. Only GSTR 9 is only for the period of July to March. Also, in earlier video, we saw that GSTR 9 is only for the period for which you are registered as a normal taxpayer. So if I was under composition scheme for say from July to September, then GSTR 9 would be only for the period of October to March. That is the period when I am under normal mechanism. Next issue is if there is any difference in GSTR 3B versus GSTR 1 or GSTR 3B versus GSTR 2A, whether the tax difference are to be reported in total demand of tax in table 15E. So it has been clarified that 15E only covers demand. If demand is raised by adjudicating authority, then only it will come in 15E. Mere difference in GSTR 2A or GSTR 1 and 3B would not require reporting in table 15E. So with this, friends, I conclude this video on detailed analysis of GST annual return. Hope this presentation has enriched your knowledge on GST. Do subscribe to my channel and connect me on LinkedIn. Also, if you wish to receive email updates, you can fill your details in the Google form attached herewith. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.